Okay, so we are streaming live. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Linda.
All right, I do have a few announcements real quick. So let's see, tonight is the last class of Karma, and then we'll be on break until Monday, January 8th, and then Refuge and the Three Jewels will begin, and that'll last for 5 weeks, so it'll start December 8th and run through February 5th. And Robbie Watkins will be teaching that. He's our center director, for those of you who don't know. And of course, since this is the last of the Karma class, now would be a good time to make a donation if you can. That would certainly help support the teachings that Kadampa Center offers, as well as keeping our building open. It goes to support all of our teachers as well. And Don, as well as Geshe Gellick and others. And also, it's a practice in generosity. So, we've been learning about karma. So you can create some good karma by financially supporting our center. It also builds a connection with the Dharma and with teachers as well. So upcoming, we have this Saturday, December 16th, is Tara Practice online. It's on Zoom only. And that's from 10 to 11 on Saturday. And then on Wednesday, December 20th, we have Medicine Buddha Puja, which is done, or Medicine Buddha Practice, I think, is what it's called, because it's only on Zoom. If you ever want to sponsor or support a Medicine Buddha Puja or any puja, just let me or Donna know, and we can get that going for you. And then let's see here. We do have Sunday Dharma this Sunday, the 17th, as well as the meditation before that. But then Sunday Dharma will be on break for December 24th because it is Christmas Eve, and December 31st because it's New Year's Eve. But we are going to be open the evening of December 31st because we'll be doing Dorje Kadro, which is our annual practice where we end the year. So we'll burn off all of our negative karma that we've accumulated in 2023, ideally, and start the new year fresh. So that'll take place outside. We'll have fires going and black sesame seeds. Feel free to bring black sesame seeds if you have some, or we'll have plenty here. So don't worry about it if you don't have any. Let's see here. Oh, Dorje Kadro December 31st is in person only. So sorry, folks online. But if you're local, please come. It starts at 7, I think. Pretty sure it's 7. That practice will be led by Robbie as well. And I think that's all. Okay. Dorje Kadro practice will typically last about an hour. It's not a very long practice. Yeah. And all of those things I just mentioned can be found online, of course. My favorite place is the top right corner. Just go to the calendar. And right next to that is the donation button if you want to give anything online. Thanks.
All right. Oh. So tonight I wanted to I thought about the video that we saw at the beginning. I thought was entertaining, but it was also interesting, and it's kind of a nice summary of what the things we've learned, or at least we've heard, and you hear it again, but this time you hear it from, really realized teachers, people with a lot more experience than I have. So I thought we would listen to it again. So let's just go ahead and get into that now, and then we'll finish up with the exam. Everybody ready for the exam, right? We'll see.
Everyone online just signed off. I'm just kidding. They didn't.
Hey, we'll get you. You got it.
Bear with me for a moment while I get the video started, because, it's complicated.
So while y'all are doing that, we did have a little discussion about the rapidity of saying the mantra a few moments ago. And I mentioned a story, but I really think it's totally individual, whatever people are most comfortable with. But there was I remember a story from many years ago. There were a bunch of people I guess they were from the Insight Meditation Society. Their main practice was Vipassana, what we call mindfulness today. But anyway, their main practice was Vipassana, and they they did a Vajrayana retreat, and they did the mantras. They thought, well, this is too fast, and so they slowed it way down, and they found it to be an obstacle to their concentration to slow it down, and so they got into the habit of saying it faster, and they found it was more powerful for them. And these were people that weren't even, connected to Tibetan Buddhism ordinarily. So, but again, I think everybody's, we're all have different karma. So some people might be much more comfortable doing it slowly. I think the key thing is, is to keep everything in your mind, mindfulness of your speech, saying each syllable clearly, even though you might be saying it really, really fast, keeping your mindfulness of your body, get very, proper posture, not moving at all during the practice. And then your mind has so many things going on at one time, the visualization of Vajrasattva, with consort above your head, and the light and nectar coming in, and again doing the different visualizations, and importantly being mindful of your mind, the deity's mind, and your guru's mind is inseparably one. And then again, imagine, you'll bring to mind certain negativities of your body, maybe while you're doing it, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, or speech, whatever, while you're doing the various visualizations. And so I think it just depends on the person. But most people find it more helpful to say it at a quick pace. Okay, so we're ready to go?
Okay. Yeah, and Scott, I'm going to ask you again, once I put it in full screen, I won't be able to see chat, so if you can just...
Yep, I can hear it. I'm clear.
I might add a little
All
commentary
must be death.
to some things.
When you think your destiny is in the hands of God or everything happens randomly, then you feel you have no control. There is no chance to create your future. In Buddhism, the recognition of the law of cause and effect, also known as karma, is a fundamental key to understand how you've created your world with actions of your body, speech, and mind. When you truly understand karma, then you realize you are responsible for everything in your life. It is incredibly empowering to know that your future is in your hands. In this program, we will learn the basic laws of karma and how to change your world.
In this 6th program of our series, you'll learn about karma and the law of cause and effect. You'll begin to understand how your own actions of body, speech, and mind actually create your life experiences. And what actually determines the nature of any action, positive or negative, is our underlying motivation. Therefore, it becomes especially clear at this point the essential importance of the practice of motivation. Therefore, before listening to these teachings, in order to plant the most powerful seed we can in our mind streams for our own happiness and for the happiness of all other living beings, let us generate an especially strong motivation of bodhicitta, the highest intention possible, in order to be able to reach enlightenment as quickly as possible, to liberate other sentient beings from their sufferings, and bring them to the perfect happiness of enlightenment as well.
Everybody recognizes Venerable Ravina, right? She's been here many times.
Where did you come from? Well, Christians and the rest say you came from God. Western materialists say you came from mummy and daddy. Well, Buddha says you came from previous moments of your own consciousness, right? And so the implication here is kind of central to all the practice in Buddhism. And this is the implication here is the concept of karma, cause and effect. Karma. Okay? This, if you like to find a creative principle in Buddhism, this is where it is. This is what you'll find. If you want to find who am I, why am I, who made me, where do I come from, why is the world the way it is, why is there suffering, why is there suns and moons? The answer in Buddhism is karma. If you ask the question, who made me, well, Buddha says very directly, you did. So this consciousness of ours, it's not physical, doesn't come from God or Buddha, doesn't come from mother, father. Your body did, no problem. Egg and sperm, no problem. Turns into this nice body of yours. How kind of mother and father to provide the body, you know? But who you are, your personality, your characteristics, your propensities, your love, your hate, your anger, your jealousy, your pride, your craziness, your intelligence, whatever, doesn't come from mother, father. Just because we're like them doesn't mean that they gave it to us, you know. So consciousness is beginningless, not created. It doesn't just come from nowhere. It's not some random event that just pops up out of the sky, you know. Isn't physical, not created. These are the central points about mind. And in a way, for a Buddhist or for a person even wanting to understand Buddhism, to at least hear these words is kind of crucial to an understanding of how you practice and how you develop. And all all of Buddha's teachings are based on this concept, actually. Everything we say, do, or think, in Buddhist terms, is a karma, if you like. Like everything you do say or think is like a seed that you're planting in your consciousness that will bring a fruit similar to that seed. But all karma is Buddha's explanation of why. That's all. It's simply his technical explanation of why you get harm, you get love, whatever the story is. I mean, it's a heavy-duty idea, but it's very empowering because it says, I can change it.
This Lama spent 20 years in a Chinese prison being cattle prodded, amazing stories. And when he was finally released, he said something like, one time I almost lost my compassion. Almost. He's an extraordinary practitioner. He's deceased now.
What we call karma, actions and their results, possesses four main characteristics. The first is that whatever action has been created, it will definitely bear its effect, its corresponding effect. The second is that whatever action has been accumulated, its result will be experienced on an increased level. It means it increases and bears wider and larger results than the action itself. Then the karma, an action which is not being created cannot be experienced, and whatever actions has been created is its effect will be experienced. It's not going to be lost. Therefore, this is why it is extremely important for us to do not let even a single day go by without purifying the negative karmas, the negative actions we have accumulated that day. And therefore, this is why I keep advising that before you're going to sleep every night, review the day, check what you have done, recognize the negative actions, the positive actions you have accumulated, and rejoice on the virtues. So then you keep multiplying those virtues by rejoicing, and make a strong determination that again you're going to do like that also the next day, and so forth. And also recognize the negative actions that you have accumulated, apply the four opponent powers. In short, make sure that you attempt to purify those particular actions, negative actions accumulated that very day, to stop their multiplying force, their increasing force, and you generate a strong determination that you're not going to engage in those actions again in the next day. So this is a very important practice to be taken in your heart. In brief, what should be done all the time is to practice awareness of the three doors of the body, speech, and mind. When you are alone, practice awareness of the mind. What's going on in my mind right now? Is my mind going into virtues or non-virtues? And while recognizing that the mind is going into non-virtues, apply the opponents, the opponent powers to that particular non-virtues, and bring back the mind to virtues. And while you find yourself with others, you should mainly apply awareness in your speech. Actually, for those who want to be happy, even while experiencing great mental hardships, all they have to do is to place confidence in the karma. Then you know that sufferings comes as a result of previously accumulated actions. If I have accumulated these particular actions myself, nobody else is going to experience the result but myself. Therefore, by experiencing this particular result right now, I'm actually getting rid of a huge load of negative karma that I've accumulated in the past. And that itself serves to clear completely the mind from any hardships, even at time of incredible difficulties.
He's been in Australia. He's from Australia, I believe. He's been a monk now for about 50 years. He came to Kadampa Center.
If we investigate what is the essential teaching of the Buddha, what is the single most important teaching of the Buddha? Some people say it is the teaching on compassion, or which in its highest form is the teaching about bodhicitta. Some people might say that the most important teaching of the Buddha is the teachings of the true nature of self and phenomena, the wisdom teachings of the Buddha. Some people may say something else, but I think what we have to say is the single most important teaching of the Buddha is the teaching on the law of cause and effect, about karma. This is the single most important teaching of the Buddha because it contains within it all of the other teachings. By understanding the law of cause and effect and practicing it in one's life, it is the way to develop love and kindness and compassion and eventually bodhicitta. By practicing the law of cause and effect in our daily life, it is being wise, and it is the way to develop wisdom. And by practicing, giving central importance in our daily life to observing the law of cause and effect as the single most important thing, moment by moment, by doing that, we develop renunciation. There is the chance for some momentary happiness. We are very attached to momentary happiness, but then we remember the teaching on the law of cause and effect, and we remember that if I do something to get this momentary happiness, maybe I have to lie to get it, maybe I have to steal to get it, or do something. Certainly I at least have to follow my attachment. I have to follow my desire, and therefore I create negative karma. It's a negative action, puts a negative imprint in my mind. In order to get this little moment of worldly happiness, I create the potential for suffering in the future. Practicing the law of cause and effect is the key to developing every quality on the path to liberation and enlightenment. So that is the fundamental refuge. Understanding the law of cause and effect, developing faith in it, putting a key emphasis to being mindful of the law of cause and effect in our daily life so that we can observe it. It's Lama Zopa Rinpoche makes this joke, just ordinary mindfulness is not good enough. Now I am picking up the knife, now I am stabbing this person, now I am stabbing this person very carefully. That kind of mindfulness is not helpful. Real mindfulness has this moral connotation of knowing being aware that one is doing something that is either virtuous or non-virtuous, knowing that this thing is going to produce suffering now and in the future, or this action of body, speech or mind is going to produce some happiness now and in the future. We need that kind of mindfulness, mindfulness mixed with an understanding and faith in the law of cause and effect. And the stronger the faith, the stronger the energy to withhold from doing negative things, thinking negative things, saying negative things, and doing negative things. And also the more we understand the law of cause and effect, we develop a deeper understanding of what is negative, what is harmful to ourselves and others. Right. So that is the key teaching, the key practice.
I was working in Washington, D.C. in politics in a very fast-paced environment. When you're in Washington, D.C., part of your work in politics is people lie, and that's part of your business, is to lie. In fact, you are encouraged to lie, and you're rewarded for lying. And bosses will come up to you after you've lied to somebody, a client or a customer or someone, and say, "That was great. It was great how you did that deal. Fantastic. You got $5,000 from them, and great. And so we would tell lies all the time, and I never thought there was any problem. I thought that was how I was supposed to be. So then, in my late 20s, when I came in contact with the Buddhist teachings in Nepal, and I heard the teachings on karma, and these teachings were hard to listen to. I mean, they were teachings that, if you lie, then you're going to create the cause for no one to ever believe you in the future. And if you steal, you will create a result that people will steal from you, and you will lose valuable things that you value. And there were all these teachings that, if I did these bad things, then bad things were going to happen to me. And when you get angry at somebody, you're creating the cause for someone to get angry at you and yell at you. And I didn't like to get yelled at. I don't think anybody does. So I left the teachings with what we call the 10 non-virtues, and sometimes called the 10 ethical guidelines of, not stealing, not killing, not creating sexual misconduct, and things like that, not lying and gossiping, and I started to work with those. I started to just try one, because lying in my work had been a big thing. I was really used to that. So I got a new job when I came back to America, and I was trying to be really careful not to lie. And I did have some experiences in some workplaces where I didn't think people listened to me. And for 2 years, I very seriously went after the lying. I was very careful in my relationships not to lie. And I was very careful in work, in business conduct with people, that I wouldn't lie. And after like 2 or 3 years, something started to change. And I found people were listening, and people did believe me. It started to really change my world. They say that sometimes when you change your ethical behavior by speaking the truth, by cultivating life and helping to save lives and freeing animals and being respectful in my relationships with people, particularly intimate relationships, and cultivating harmony in them, and trying to practice taking care of my possessions and treating other possessions with respect, people if I borrowed something, and all these things of right speech, of speaking the truth, and really trying to use my speech meaningfully, not gossiping all the time, and not criticizing people and judging people, and not kind of dividing people in speech, and trying to have positive thoughts about things. I noticed that things changed. When you wake up in the morning, you have two choices. You can have a good day, or you can have a bad day. And even when bad things happen to you, depending on your reaction to them, you could say, a bad thing happened to me today, but I'm not going to get angry at my friend because that's just going to create the situation of anger to come back at me. When you start to understand it that way, then you stop reacting. Why did they do this to me? This is not fair. With karma, there's no more injustice. Things might look like it's not fair, but basically it's something you've created. So the nice thing with karma is it puts you at the controls. There isn't anybody doing it to you. You're not a victim. You're basically in charge of what kind of seeds you'd like to plant from here on out. So by watching my activities, the activities really in my body, speech, and mind, I feel like that's going to create a good chance for me, the next time round.
For me, the Buddha's instructions were similar to that of a business plan. If your forecast, if your plan, it's not, doesn't have a proper foundation, then all your forecasting is going to go off. It's just not going to succeed. I realized then I better look at what are the problems I'm facing in the company, and then I better look at what seeds I've planted in the past, because all my suffering has come from a cause. The major problem we had was inventory pilferage, stock pilferage and losses. And so, every year, merchandise, clothing, people steal them from our warehouse, from our shops, and we don't know about it till the end of the year when we look and we say, oh my God, so many goods are missing, So then I realized by looking at the teachings that through investigation, I realized that the cause of that was stealing. Now you say, now how does stealing have to do with losing inventory? But then stealing can mean many things also, And I realized that sometimes our company did not pay on time, So by delaying payment could be considered also stealing. So when I realized that, I said to myself, this must change. So we had to renegotiate with our suppliers to get longer credit terms and then honor those due dates that we said we would meet. You see? So that was what we had to apply, that antidote, so that we could stop the cause of more further losses and further pilferage. You see? So something had to be done. We had to do it straight away. So this was the answer we thought we would have to do. The result of that, since 2 years ago, is that our inventory losses have come down. You see? So this really shows me that, Buddha's teachings do work. The more that I see that happening, it really inspires me to study Dharma, because that way, you know what? You can change your life. I could change my life. If I didn't like the causes if I didn't like what's going on, Buddhism is kind. It allows you to change so that you can create your own happiness. But you need to understand that you're creating your own suffering. And I needed to understand that I was creating my own suffering. Nobody was doing it to me. It was myself, my causes from the past. And you'll see, and I could say that, well, I don't think I did that. I don't think I did that. If my memory cannot even remember 6 months ago, then how can I remember all the bad deeds I've done 10 years ago, 20 years ago? I don't. But the point is, I've created this garden. It's got a lot of weeds, So I have to spend my time reading purification, collecting merit, studying teachings, and devoting myself to the Lama, all things that will create more happiness. And then by me being happy, then I can benefit sentient beings, because they are happy to be working in the company. They're happy because they say, things are going well and they will be rewarded too. So everybody benefits.
Okay. Nice summary of the key points that we talked about. Any did that bring up any questions anybody might have, or comments? Either way. Yeah.
Hi, Jeevan, can you run the microphone? Rebecca back here.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, Don, just the question about renunciation. Can you speak a little bit about renunciation as it relates to karma, please?
Renunciation as it relates to karma. All right. Sure. Can we find the what page is Three Principles of the Path? Isn't that in this book? A great question. Ah, yeah, here it is. Okay. Look on page 142. These are the, well, it goes to the purpose of renunciation. Without complete, this is 141, without the complete intention to definitely be free from circling. Circling means circling in samsara. This cycle of uncontrolled causation. You could see the wheel of life as you come in the door. There is no way to pacify attachment seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling. Also, by craving cyclic existence, embodied beings are completely bound. Therefore, at the very beginning, seek renunciation. So I think we talked a little bit about this at one point, but so renunciation is a kind of weird word, but it is the the foundation of, it's the beginning of spiritual practice, and we don't have it. I mean, it's a profound realization, and yet we do have some degree of renunciation because, frankly, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody here, but we wouldn't be here if things were great, would we? We'd be home, blissed out. But life is full of problems, and so we understand that life is problematic. So we have to come to grips with reality that and this, so renunciation, so translated as the determination to be free. That's the direct translation, determination to be free. Now, I've heard some teachers say, I remember one teacher, because I was trying to find this in Buddha. I said, where in Buddhism does it say anything about having compassion for yourself? And he was, his name was Kishi Sonam, and he used to teach at the Tibetan library in Dharamsala. He said, that's renunciation. You realize what a mess you're in, and you have this awareness of it, that have compassion for yourself, and and then you make a determination to be free. Until we come to grips with the human condition, there's no determination to be free. So this is the beginning of the spiritual path. As long as we think everything's hunky-dory, they say, the best way to keep somebody in prison is to make sure they don't know they're in prison. Then they'll never try to get out. And so that's kind of how we are. We're in this prison of samsara, and yet we don't know it. And so there's no real determination to get out. So we have to develop renunciation to develop this determination to be free. And beyond that is even the belief that it is possible to be free, and then that it is possible for me to be free. So that's a big deal, because we have such I call it a spiritual inferiority complex. We don't think we have Buddha nature. We don't tend to believe that we have this enormous potential to evolve and be extraordinary human beings, and even possibly a Buddha. So it's a big deal. So renunciation. So there's they're basically 4 meditations, and they're right here. The first one is freedom and endowments are difficult to find, and life has no time to spare. Having gained familiarity with this, attraction to the appearances of this life is reversed. The next stanza, by thinking over and over again that actions and their effects are unbetraying. So that's karma, isn't it? And repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence, that's the suffering, that's the dukkha of cyclic existence. Attraction to the appearances of future lives is reversed. So now, our attraction to the deliciousness of this life is reversed. So now, like, more focus in being in the moment. Well, we go, well, if I don't get it in this life, I'll get it in the next life. But no, the next life isn't going to go well either, because as Lama Zopa says, 24/7, our mind is pervaded by self-cherishing. So we're constantly creating negative karma, and rarely are behaving in a purely selfless way. But the first line, freedoms and endowments are difficult to find. So that refers to some teachings called precious human rebirth, and they talk about the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments. Are you familiar with that? Well, precious human rebirth is just kind of common sense, isn't it? Boy, it's amazing that we were born a human being we've got our faculties. We're not living in some war-torn country right now. We're not in these joyless realms in samsara where you could never practice dharma, and so on. So we have an enormous, we're free of a lot of obstacles that would prevent us from practicing. And then we're endowed with a lot of amazing possibilities. We're not born in the lower realms, and we do have our faculties. And this sounds weird, but they say in the teachings, they say we live at a time when a Buddha has descended, because there are many eons that are completely dark where there's no Dharma available. But we happen to live in this amazing time, in the enormity of endless time, right? Where the Buddha, not only a Buddha has descended, and a Buddha has actually taught. Some Buddhas will descend, come into a world system, and realize there's nobody who's going to get it, and just check out. But a Buddha's descended, a Buddha has chosen to teach, and has actually taught the Vajrayana, which is even more rare, because those are the teachings that enable us to actually get enlightened. And that, we have realized teachers. There are beings alive that actually have realized the teachings, because when the Dharma exists only in a book, it's dead. It lives in the consciousness of the beings that have realized the teachings. And in fact, that's the true meaning of Dharma, the realizations in the minds of these holy beings. So, so we live at a time when there are teachers that have realized the teachings, and they're teaching it. And even more rare is the fact that we have an interest. Not many people have an interest. I mean, this room, look at all the empty seats. There's a lot of people that are not here tonight. They don't have the karma or the interest, but we have the interest to practice, and we have the leisure. We have the time and the leisure. Sometimes some leisure. Some people have more than others. So those are the freedoms and endowments. So we that's supposed to be, thinking about that is supposed to be a really good antidote to depression. When you realize that we're free of so many obstacles and we have this amazing opportunity to realize our full human potential. We're endowed with these amazing possibilities. So freedoms and endowments, precious human rebirth, realizing that it's precious. And then the second part of that is that it could end any moment, all right? Life has no time to spare. By gaining familiarity, that goes back to the teachings on death and impermanence. That death is definite. Everybody dies. We think. I've often said, when I really look inside my mind, and I really think most of us, intellectually we know we're going to die, but there's a part of us that thinks that we're going to last forever. It's not going to happen to me, but we know we're going to die. So death is definite. If you look around, there's nobody. Where's Abraham Lincoln? Where's George Washington? Where's Jesus? Where's Muhammad? Where's they're all gone. And for many of us, we've seen many of our family members disappear. Death being taken away by death. So death is definite. The conclusion is, I must practice the Dharma because death is definite. And the second one is that the time of death is completely random. Could happen any time. So many of the things that your car, a lot of the things that we think that make our lives easier actually can be the cause of our death. Like our automobiles and airplanes and houses, then they have a bunch of tornadoes ripped through Nashville last night, or people I'm sure were killed. So anyway, so many of the food we eat, so many things can take our lives anytime. So the time of death is completely random, and it could happen any moment. So the conclusion there is, I must practice the Dharma now, no procrastination. And then the last contemplation is to realize that when we're on our deathbed, or when we're near that moment of death, are we going to freak out? Are we going to have composure and actually be able to bring to mind thoughts of wisdom and, particularly compassion for ourselves, but other beings as well that might be going through the same process? How are we going to handle our demise, our moment of death? And the only currency that we can spend at that time is spiritual currency, is Dharma currency. That's the only thing of any benefit at the time of death, are the realizations in our mental continuum, the Dharma seeds that we planted on our continuum. They can arise at the time of death and give us an opportunity to die peacefully and joyfully, and in a way that would actually make our future life, a positive future life, more possible. So we must practice the Dharma purely. So those are the three things. I must practice because we're going to die. I must practice the Dharma. We can get any time, could happen any time. I must practice the Dharma now. And the only thing of any benefit at the time of death is Dharma. So I must practice the Dharma purely. Okay? So when we think about these two things, precious human rebirth and death and impermanence, we think about life is so precious and it could be over any minute. Life is so precious because I can use it to become enlightened, and it could be over any minute and I'll miss the opportunity. Will help us turn our mind away from just the deliciousness of this life. So that's step one to developing renunciation. And that step two has to do with karma, which we've been talking about, right? The 4 laws of karma. Karma is definite. Positive leads to happiness. Negative actions lead to suffering. And it's based on motivation. Any action motivated by a negative mind state, hatred, ill will, anger, fear, any of those negative mind states are based on self-cherishing selfishness, will always result in our future suffering. And any action motivated by compassion and wisdom and kindness and so forth. That selflessness, will always lead to happiness. So positive leads to happiness, negative leads to suffering. That's the first law. And karma is expandable. So, remember the acorn and the oak tree, right? So that's why, where the Rinpoche was saying that we must purify our karma. We must do kind of purification every night as much as possible, because the negative karmic seeds that we planted all day long, but even earlier this morning, they're growing exponentially. And so we must, as best we can, purify the negative karma. But he also mentioned something else. We need to rejoice in the positive karma, because rejoicing is the easiest way, by the way, to create positive karma. Rejoicing in your good actions and somebody else's good actions. So rejoicing is really important to do. So doing the purification practices, reviewing the day, rejoicing in our positive actions, because it makes it more likely for us to do those again, and taking in regret for the not guilt but regret, and doing the four opponent powers. Remember, four opponent powers are reliance, regret, not guilt, the remedy, and the resolve. Okay, so anyway, we remember karma as expandable, and then the third law is you can't experience a result without creating a cause. So anything that happens to us is the fruition of former actions. And by the same token, we can shape and create our future by the choices we make in the moment now, based on our motivation and the actions that we're taking. So it's like amazing creative force, because it explains everything. Everything that we've ever experienced is the fruit of former actions, and everything that we will experience in the future will be the fruition of former actions. And then this lady, and the last lady that spoke, she made it sound like, well, karma can, and I mentioned this earlier too, if karma were instant, can you imagine what kind of world we'd be living in right now? If people actually believed that karma was real and true, had faith in it, and that karma was instant, you think anybody would steal? Heck no. Or lie? Because it would come back right on you immediately. Bad things would happen. So, and then last is that karma is never lost, right? It's unless it's good karma can be destroyed by anger, and of course negative karma can be destroyed by purification, particularly in meditation on emptiness. That's the ultimate way to wipe the slate clean. So that's, again, we're trying to develop renunciation. So the first part of this is karma, and the second, turning the mind away from the happiness of future lives, because the point is that 24/7 we're creating negative karma, and it's going to come back on us. So we really need to, pay attention to what's going on in our mind, particularly the actions of body and speech, but also mental. And then the other aspect of it is dukkha, or the suffering. Is saying, thinking over and over again that actions and their effects are unbetraying, and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence. So that's like, that in a nutshell we can, the Four Noble Truths, we talk about the suffering of birth and sickness and aging and death, just those four. But then there's other lists that go on. Like, for example, meeting leads to parting, always. High position leads to low position. All composite things must separate into their parts. We have to be born again and again and again, and go through the whole cycle of suffering. And we have to die again and again and again. I remember Jeffrey Hopkins, who's a famous Buddhist scholar and was professor emeritus at the University of Virginia. He used the example that he said, imagine the corpses that we've taken. If we just took the skeletons of the corpse of our former lives, it'd be way bigger than Mount Everest. What an image. We've died so many times. We've been through this so many times and we haven't got it right yet. Okay. So, we're born again. And then the worst suffering in samsara, Lama Zopa says, and this is one to think about, is that we're never satisfied. We're never, ever satisfied. We can't have enough. We can't have enough love. We can't have enough food. We can't have enough pleasurable experiences. We're always, we're addicted to deliciousness. As one great Theravada, this monk, Ajahn Buddhadasa Bhikkhu from Thailand, I remember him saying that. I thought, that's so perfect. We just want, all we want is good stuff to happen. And we don't want bad stuff to happen. That's and so in a sense, we cling to the notion of pleasure, gain, fame, and praise, and we dread the opposite of pain, loss, disgrace, and blame. We call them the 8 worldly dharmas in Buddhism, but it's basically we're addicted to deliciousness. So we're never satisfied. We get what we want. It's never good enough because it never lasts. It's always changing. It's going to go out even the most pleasurable experiences, the greatest sex, the greatest vacation, the greatest sunset, the greatest dinner, the greatest conversation always comes to an end. And then we want more. We're never satisfied. So that's kind of like what the future will hold. Future lives will hold that. So go back to, karma, most of the, cause and effect, most of the time we're focused, most of the time we're not creating the cause of happiness or virtue. Most of the time we're creating negative karma. And we know about the laws of karma. And then what's that going to project us in? What kind of karmic vision are we creating for ourselves? Is dukkha, all these problems that we just talked about, and more. So we look at karma, cause and the law of cause and effect, and then and most of the time we're creating negative karma, and then we're looking at the future, which is going to be dukkha, unless we get out of this prison of cyclic existence. So that helps us turn our mind away from the happiness of future lives. So now, with those two realizations, we develop this determination to be free. So we have to have faith in that it's possible. So that's hard, because when we have to have faith that we can do it, that we can do it, that we have that potential to be free of suffering. I mean, the only way the things that have given me the most faith in my years of, flailing around in Buddhism and trying my best, but not getting much results. But the thing that's given me the most faith are my teachers. Seeing these extraordinary beings like His Holiness Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe and Geshe-la and other amazing lamas that I've had an opportunity to meet and spend time around and actually see how they behave and how they interact with other people. And you go, this is the fruition of the practice, these extraordinary beings. So that gives some kind of faith. It helps. Actually, I'll just say this. It really has to do with the laws of karma, because it is not something we can prove, right? If you really embrace the law of karma, then you have to embrace past and future lifetimes, right? Because, little babies don't have time to create a lot of negative karma, but bad things do happen to them. Bad things happen to nice people. So where did that karma come from? It came from some past lifetime. It's very, very rare. The lady was talking, like she did something and 2 years later, her inventory got better. That's rare. Most of the karma we create in this lifetime will not ripen in this lifetime. So we shouldn't have any expectations. Well, I'm going to give a great Christmas present because I'm expecting a good one back. It doesn't work that way. We give we give without any expectation, because we give with the expectation, with the understanding, but not the expectation that the karma is going to ripen in this lifetime. Although it is possible, some action could be positive, could be negative, could actually ripen. The fruit of that action could ripen in this lifetime, but it has to be very, very, very powerful. The object of the action has to be powerful, and the action has to be repeated many, many times. For example, an action that's positive toward your parents or toward your teacher, your guru, would be something that's a powerful object. And then if it's powerfully negative or powerfully positive results could actually create power results even in this lifetime if it's done repetitively. So anyway, so the point is about renunciation is to really have some faith in our own potential, and that's hard. That's something that through practice, I think, when we see our mind begin to shift a little bit from our suffering gets a little bit less, our happiness gets a little bit more, maybe have a few more friends, and our things go better for us. And the only difference really is that we have a spiritual practice now. We're doing something, and we're actually beginning to see some results. That's a way to develop a seed of faith too. So that's what I would say. Yeah. So with that, with all of this together mixed up, you go, want to be free. We developed this determination to be free, but there's a lot there, isn't it? Yeah.
There's a nice follow-up question. So it's a good lead-in. On Zoom, a student asked, how does our karma travel with us from lifetime to lifetime?
That is a really good question. I've actually done a little bit, I should emphasize a little bit. I've heard different stories. I mean, I think there's controversy. I mean, for example, some of the schools of Tibetan Buddhism, I think the mind-only school, for example, posits a storehouse consciousness that carries the karma from lifetime to lifetime. But I think the highest view, the Madhyamika Prasangika view, the highest view that is posited in Buddha Dharma is that it literally rides on the consciousness carries the karma. In other words, I've heard it said one way, like, what I do in this moment is the fruit of all of my former karma. There's no package that is put into. It's just carried along on the stream of consciousness, constantly changing. It's not some fixed thing that all of a sudden sprouts like a seed, It's not fixed. It's constant. It's very dynamic, and it flows along with the stream of consciousness. That's the best I can do. But that's a good question for Geshe-la.
And I will add in one of the Exploring Buddhism classes that Gendon Hendrik taught online, he went into a pretty deep detail about this, but I'm not even going to attempt to say what he said. So you could maybe try to find it. It's a recording, Exploring Buddhism, one of the later modules.
Mm. Anything else? Yeah.
Kurt, hang on for the microphone.
You answered most of it, but I did have a thought. So on a very practical level, if our karma is not going to ripen in this lifetime, shouldn't we be focused more on purification to make our life happier now? So that's one question. And then the other one is, why does karma expand? Other than having faith that it does? Is there a reason why?
I don't think there's a reason any more than, it's like saying, well, I don't know. I mean, this is not a great example, but I don't think that's a answerable question. Why, if I drop something, does it go to the ground? Gravity. Why is there gravity? I don't know, but it's just how it is. From a Buddhist perspective, it's just how it is. Karma expands. I mean, and they use the example of, but you can think of examples in your life. You use the example of the acorn in the tree, right? It starts growing immediately. But I mean, there are times when maybe just some kind word and something amazing happens. Like you get a job, you meet somebody, you say something nice to them, or you just smile at somebody and they respond to you. And next thing you know, you got a friend. And next thing you know, you got a wife or a husband. That's expandable. That's an example of karma expanding. So I don't know. Other than that, what was the other question again?
Just on a practical level, if the karma you're creating today, you will not see in your lifetime, shouldn't you be more focused on purifying old karma to have a better life now?
Well, this is not the answer you want to hear, but most of the karma that's ripening in this lifetime, I mean, they say all of it, but not all of it. It's possible to create karma in this life, as I said, that could ripen in this lifetime. But the vast majority of karma that we're experiencing in this lifetime is from past lifetimes. So they say any karmic action, it could ripen in this life. If it's, like I said, it has to depend upon the repetitiveness of it, the power of the object, your motivation, and so on. And it makes it heavier, and therefore can ripen in this lifetime. It could ripen in the immediate next lifetime, or it can ripen in, 100 zillion lifetimes from now. But it's never lost. So those are the three things they say about when it can. So yeah, most of the karma we experience in this life is the fruit of past lifetimes. So you go, wow, I must have been a bad person or whatever. But it's a good point. It's like, I've asked this thing, like, I'm not even going to know this guy, or I may not even be a person. I might be an animal. I don't even know where this future consciousness is going. I would like for it to be reborn, for example, as a Mahayana Buddhist. I'd like to have a fortunate human rebirth and be able to meet the teachers and meet the Dharma again and practice and make further, advancement along the spiritual path. So purification is a big part of that, doing that now in this lifetime so that we can assure us our future life is a good one. But we can't purify. I mean, we can, of course, but we can purifying with the idea that, well, like I'm going to weed the garden right now so the flowers can come up today or tomorrow, this or next week. That doesn't work very well because the motivation is kind of greedy. It's like I want it now, and so that I want to purify. The idea always is to purify without any expectation. Do Dharma practice, practice virtue without any expectation. I think that's it's helpful to think that karma is not going to ripen in this lifetime because, hey, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. I'm going to give because it's, I know it creates good karma and it's the right thing to do. And I'm going to do it with the proper motivation. And it's okay to remember karma and to know that, yeah, at some point down the road, I will be happier because of that. And underneath that is I'll be, as a happier, more together person, then I'll be able to really help others. I'm actually might even be able to be a Buddha or even a Bodhisattva. And then I can really help others. So, practicing without expectation without the ego involved. You know, practicing the 10 non-virtues, avoiding the 10 non-virtues without any ego-driven motivation is very powerful. But purification is really important. And yeah, we don't know who's going to benefit from our purification practices. It's not going to be, I mean, not to say that we don't feel better. I usually feel better after I do purification practices personally. I mean, I used to do it with my kids every Sunday morning. I've got a little Dorji Cadre statue. There's a big one back here somewhere, but I got a little one. And we just put little black sesame seeds in there. I built a little fire in his belly, and we put black sesame seeds, and we'd say, okay, we're going to get rid of, all right, any anger this week, girls? Okay. All right, put your black sesame seeds, and it go pop, 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 and smoke would come out of Dorji Cadre's mouth. And you know, okay. So we try to remember our negativities. It's very important to do purification practice. Yeah. But again, always with the understanding that about those 4 opponents. Got to remember the 4 opponents to make the purification practice a complete purification practice. And by the way, they in Theravada Buddhism, which is kind of interesting, they don't believe that you can purify negative karma. That's not part of the teachings. You know, so there's a real emphasis in Theravada Buddhism, for example, because I lived in Thailand for almost 2 months on one occasion, and you know, there's a real emphasis on avoiding anything that's going to disturb the senses. You know, like looking at beautiful objects. When the monks go on begging rounds, they look at the ground. They don't look up because they don't want to see a beautiful woman, for example, and they have desire arise, and because you can't purify it, and so that's going to lead to future suffering. There's a lot of interesting. I'm only saying that because it's a little different than Mahayana practice, but again, in the Mahayana tradition, we can purify negative karma, and the ultimate, the applying the opponent powers can weaken the negative karma that we have created. But the only way to wipe the slate clean is to do that with an awareness of emptiness. And we have to have a realization of emptiness, some realization of emptiness to really completely eliminate negative karma from our consciousness. You know, or at least make the seeds so they can't ripen, like burn them. Like a seed that's been just burned can't come to fruition. Anyway, so thanks for the question. Yeah. Any other questions? Online?
Any questions on Zoom? And if you're on YouTube, you can always put it in the chat if you have a question. If you're on Zoom, just...
Well, I am going to run through, so just to make sure all of you know, you guys know all this stuff. I don't know, this might be a waste of time. We'll do it anyway. So they actually, in the teachers thing, there was this suggested public exam. So I just decided to print it out. So the first question is, what is karma? Now these are things that it's important. I said to memorize this stuff. That's why repetition is so important, and it's a good thing. But what is karma? Anybody want to take that on? All you Dharma bums out there?
Anyone in here?
I say bums in a positive way. People, when I was traveling in India back in the late 70s, early 80s, and they used to call all these Westerners who were at the Buddhist centers, they call them Dharma bums, because we'd show up at these teachings and stuff like that. So we got to, we're all Dharma bums, I guess. So any Anybody want to take on what is karma? Yeah.
I think of karma as cause and effect and intention, motivation.
And it would, so the word, what does the word karma mean? What's the equivalent to the Sanskrit? Action. Yeah. So it's really, it's big. It's all of those things. It has to do with motivation, but it's actions of literally that cause the mind to move. So any actions of body, speech, and mind create karma. So we can think of it like that. You know, what goes around comes around. That's karma. What you sow, you reap. That's karma. You know, it's in Christianity, but they don't go into it in anywhere, in any way the depth that we do, that I'm aware of. Anyway, I'm not a scholar. But all right. So, what are the 4 basic principles of karma? This is easy. Get some hands up here. Let me see some hands. This is a piece of cake. So am I gonna have to start pointing? Okay, we got a hand there in the back. Say your name, please.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, okay.
So you're saying the 4 basic principles?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to go in order? I know I can sporadically say
You
them.
can do any way you want
Okay.
to.
Karma is expandable.
Mhm.
It absolutely happens as a result of something you've done,
Right.
negative or positive. It will have its result, its consequence. Expandable. It's definite. It's definite. And I forgot the last one.
Never lost.
Never lost, except for it can be purified.
Yeah. Or destroyed. Good karma
Destroyed
can be
by
destroyed by anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. All right. This one I think we can pass. Explain the analogy of a seed and its fruit and how it relates to the 4 principles of karma. I think we just did that one. Pardon? Okay. Explain the analogy of a seed and its fruit and how it relates to the 4 principles of karma mentioned above. I don't think we need to do that. All right. What kinds of results can come about through a single karmic action? This one's a little tricky. We only touched on this last week, and unless you've been listening to the online version, but there's the fully ripened effect of a karma. Remember, a complete karma has to be a complete karma, which means that you have to have, the motivation, and then you have to have the object and the action, and then rejoicing, right? Or some reaction to what you did. So those are the things that make a complete karma. So a fully ripened result of a complete karma, it could result in a rebirth. For example, and it's interesting, at the moment of death, the karma that ripens at your last moment of this life is the throwing karma for the next lifetime. Okay, so if you die with a happy, peaceful mind, then the next life is much more likely to be positive than negative. Okay, so the fully ripened effect could be the rebirth, a result experience that's similar to the cause. For example, if you were kind to somebody, then people would be kind to you. Or if you were mean to people, then people are going to be mean to you. If you steal, you're going to get your stuff ripped off. So we're going to experience a result that is similar to the cause that we created. Then we can experience the kind of action done to oneself over and over again. So I think I got that mixed up. No, that's right. And then rebirth, result experience that's similar to the cause, experience the kind of action done to oneself over and over again. So that's if we were, if we kill, then we're more likely to be killed. If we steal, more likely to be steal. The third one is results similar to the cause, that is the habit to do it. So in the future life, if we've done something negative or positive in the future life, we're going to have the tendency to do that more and more. So if we've been very virtuous in the future life, more like that karma's that fully ripened effect of that karma is that we're more likely to be a kind person. We're more likely to be virtuous. We're more likely to be an angry, unhappy person. And then the last one is environmental effect. And basically, all the negative karma results in really bad places where let's say you were born on this earth. So that's, you're born a human being. It's kind of good karma, right? And you got precious human rebirth. But let's say you're living in a place that's filthy and disgusting and bad smells and everything. That's the environmental effect of a karma. So the karma can result in a fully ripened result. A fully ripened karma can result in a particular rebirth. It can result in us experiencing results similar to the cause. So if we killed, we'll be killed. If we steal, we'll be stolen from. If we're kind, people will be kind to us. If we're generous, we'll be wealthy, and so forth. And then we'll have another is that we'll experience the habit of being that way in the future lifetime as well. The result of behaving in the fully ripened effect of generosity is to be generous, to have a tendency to be generous. We know people that way that have just naturally have good positive qualities or sometimes negative qualities. That's just their habit. And then the environmental effect. So it explains everything, doesn't it? That the karma explains everything. It explains why we were born in this particular time with this particular body and so forth. It explains why we have the habits that we have, why things happen to us, and why we're in this environment that we're in. So it's kind of part of the whole discussion of how karma works. Yeah.
I didn't want to take you away from your questions, but I had another question.
Yeah.
So what if you're in the midst of a rising karmic, a seed that's ripened, and you've done your work to purify, but there's no relief. It still continues. Do you step into a place? Do you understand what I'm saying? The seed of karma has ripened.
Yeah.
You've done your work to do your purification and meditated on emptiness and done what you can, but the pain and the discomfort and whatever it is it's relentless, and it continues for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Even though you've done all your work for purification and you've done what you can, I assume that at that point you just go into this place of equanimity and complete compassion, and you know what I mean, especially when the experience is relentlessly painful.
Yeah, that's all karma, isn't it? That's just more the work was, if the karma were truly purified, then there would be no further suffering. But Rupa Rinpoche he alluded to this. When a karma ripens, like something bad ripens, like you as a sickness or a relationship breakup, or your house burns down, or something gets stolen from you, or whatever. I'll give you a great. Did I give an example of? I remember one time I was in Bodh Gaya, and His Holiness, FPMT had purchased this land outside Bodh Gaya and had built this beautiful altar and beautiful tent, which is made out of all this sheer, material. And it was just an amazing place. And it was land that they were going to build this huge statue on, Maitreya statue. And they asked His Holiness to come and bless the land. And then right, and they had all these light offerings, little candles and these little things that they have, that they use oil, and they put a little wick in there, and they had thousands of light offerings. And as soon as His Holiness left and everybody else left, one of these candles spilled over, and the whole thing burned down. And everybody, and there was, there was the response to that was, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is terrible. It was, wow, we just purified the obstacles, to having this problem. To have this statue actually be built. So, Tibetans have a weird way of looking at the world. They frame, when negative things happen, they say, okay, that's karma ripening. That karma is finished. I don't ever have to experience the fruition. I don't have to experience the result of that karma again. So that's, in a sense, it's purified. It's gone. Can never. That seed has come to fruition. Is finished. We don't have to experience that anymore. So that's another way you can think of as purification, is when we experience difficult times, and we do it skillfully and not create more. If somebody gets angry at us and is yelling at our face, and we can feel ourselves getting upset, but we restrain ourselves and we try to develop some peacefulness in that moment and not create another round of suffering. That's really powerful for our mind. Get what I'm saying? Yep. It's not somebody was telling me when they first met the Tibetans, people were talking about, because they suffered a lot when they came out of India. They had to come over the Himalayas, and they ended up in Dharamsala, and a lot of them were sick, and they used to build the roads up in Himachal Pradesh, where they were, and they got sick and they got headaches, and they would all, many times, they say, oh, I got this headache. This really hurts, but I'm actually purifying negative karma. To actually see your sickness as purification instead of as the worst thing that could ever happen to me would be an amazing attitude to bring to illness. Whereas ordinarily, when we're sick or bad things happen to us, we hate it. We just can't wait to get over it. And we don't see anything positive in an illness. But to see that an illness or some difficult situation or problem actually purifying or eliminating that karmic seed is a wild attitude. It's not something that I ever thought about until I started studying karma. All right, so we've got a few minutes. 10 non-virtuous actions. Anybody want to take those on? 3 of body, 4 of speech, 3 of mind. Good to if you're doing your by the way, when you're doing your purification, if you're doing Vajrasattva, you go, well, I haven't killed anybody in this lifetime. I don't, I've killed some mosquitoes and maybe some mice, or inadvertently killed a lot of insects while I was driving down the road, but I didn't have any ill intention. But from the Buddhist perspective, when we're purifying, when you bring to mind something that you've done in this lifetime that's negative that you want to purify, also just remember you've done it countless times in previous lifetimes. We've all been like the worst mass murderers we can imagine. We can think of Stalin, who killed tens of millions of people in the gulags. We've been way worse than Stalin. So we don't have any reason to get all puffed up about how great we are. We want to purify the negative karma of this and all of our past lifetimes. We want to purify the killing of this and all of our past lifetimes, the stealing of this and all of our past lifetimes, whatever it is. Keep that in mind. Make it big. Make your purification big in that way. Yeah. So what are the 10 non-virtues again?
Anyone in here want to take a stab at it?
I think you know them. Just shy. This is a shy group.
Anyone on Zoom? Don just mentioned a couple of the first ones.
I think Laura should give it an answer. I can see Laura.
You said 3 of body.
3 of body, 4 of
So
speech, 3 of mind.
stealing, it would be stealing, sexual misconduct, and stealing, sexual misconduct,
Killing.
Yes, yes.
Killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. 4 of speech.
Divisive speech, lying,
Right.
gossiping, and harsh speech.
Yeah, good job. And 3 of mind.
I don't have any of those.
I think Dinesh is typing them in.
Close.
What? Of the mind. I don't know.
Sometimes we say greed, hatred, ignorance, but technically it's covetousness, ill will, and ignorance. And ignorance is not only the ignorance of not knowing the true nature of reality, but it's disbelief in the laws of karma. It's disbelief in the Four Noble Truths. It's not believing in your own potential to become enlightened. To have this real sense of like, I could never become enlightened. I don't have that possibility. That sort of sense of, like that. So it's big. All right, so we're running out of time. I want to acknowledge everybody who put the effort and time into being here. And given me the opportunity to study these teachings, which I find so helpful and in my daily life, when I can be mindful of them. And that's the key. That's why it's so important, I think, to study them and memorize them so you can reach into your Dharma medicine cabinet, and reach in and bring these teachings. When you notice that your mind is in a difficult place, you can bring the understanding of Dharma wisdom to that moment and solve your problems. And then you practice Dharma. Before then, you haven't practiced Dharma, but it's when we can bring Dharma wisdom to the moment when our mind is agitated and going in a negative direction, and we can solve that problem. And then and there's a little spaciousness in the mind and freedom. That's Dharma practice. That's really what it's all about. So it's kind of cool. So I want to thank everybody again for your efforts and your practice, whatever practices you've done over the last 6 weeks, and for showing up and making this class possible. It's really good for I've said this many times, but I always feel like you teach what you most need to know, and that certainly applies to me when it comes to these laws of karma. So let's do our dedication verses.
Okay, and thank you so much, Don.
Yeah.
For teaching.
Yeah.
And sharing,
my pleasure.
Sharing your
Used to work at Chick-fil-A.
Wealth of knowledge.
No, it's been a great honor to be able to, and I always learn more, when I have to teach these classes.
And
okay.
The dedication prayers in the gold book on page 32.
Yeah. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, obtaining an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms. Find repose. But the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and powerless. May people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Amen.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Pardon?
Speaking of being closed, for those of you who didn't hear my announcements at the beginning, we do have Sunday Dharma Connections this Sunday on the 17th, but not on the 24th and not on the 31st. But do come for Dorji Kadro on the 31st in the evening at 7 p.m. And there's lots of other things online. And we'll start back up with Discovering Buddhism Monday, January 8th, with Refuge in the Three Jewels. And Robbie Watkins will be teaching.
So I would
that.
like for people to put your hands together for Linda Shaw. And, you know, we got Javon. And we got Chris in the back, who's made everything possible. Thank you, Chris. So without, you know, these things are not in, they're dependent arisings, right? Everything depends upon causes and conditions. So all these, everybody's done their part, including those who just showed up. So thank you. Well, it is the first of the, you know, when we talk about the things arise in dependence upon causes and conditions, that's karma. Things arise in dependence upon parts, and it depends upon a labeling consciousness. Consciousness that labels reality. So yeah, karma is the first of those three reasonings. Shows up like Venerable Neil said, the Venerable Dunlop said, is if you understand karma, everything in Buddhism revolves around that. You know, everything depends upon the teachings, subsume everything that we would call Dharma.
On that note, good night, everyone. Thank you again, Don. Thanks for everyone coming online, YouTube and Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Here in
Thank you,
person.
Linda.
Always good to see y'all.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.